Hey guys, the video today is talking about muscular movement. We'll have a look at the way that muscles actually create a movement and then also the three different types of muscular contraction. So first up, the trickiest word that you'll have to learn this year is reciprocal inhibition. And that basically means that muscles have to work in pairs to perform a movement. So one muscle will contract and the other one will lengthen or relax. And they will form a pair or a partner to actually cause that movement. So the muscle that actually contracts or shortens is called an agonist or a prime mover, and that's the muscle that actually causes the movement in the first place. The other muscle, the one that relaxes, is called an antagonist. So the prefix ant sort of means opposite, so it's moving in the opposite way. So there's other muscles that also play a role. They're called stabilizers or fixators, but today we'll be actually just looking at the agonists and the antagonists. So you've got two pictures there. The one on the left is the person bringing their hand up to their shoulder. So in order to do that, the biceps has to contract. So the biceps is the one that's causing that movement to occur. So it's the agonist or the prime mover. And then the muscle that works in opposite to that is the antagonist or the triceps. So it has to relax or lengthen to cause that movement. And to further display that, you've got the little arrow in there showing that the elbow joint is actually reducing in size. And so to cause that movement, biceps contracts, triceps relaxes. In opposite or reverse, the process is still called reciprocal inhibition, but the roles of the muscles reverse. So to actually bring the hand away from the shoulder, the triceps has to contract and the biceps has to relax. So in that case, the triceps actually becomes the prime mover or the agonist, and the biceps becomes the antagonist. So they swap roles depending on which way the joint actually opens or closes. So in the second case, the elbow joint there is opening up. So that's why the triceps is actually the prime mover. So you just have to remember the muscle that causes the main movement is the agonist or the prime mover. The muscle that works in reverse to it is called the antagonist. All right, there's three types of muscle contractions. So isotonic, isometric, and isokinetic. So we'll go through each of those three. So isotonic muscle contractions are when the muscle actually changes length when you're performing an activity. So for example, you've got there a person doing a bicep curl again. So if you look at the biceps there, the little red muscle in the person's arm, as the person brings the dumbbell up, the biceps actually contracts or gets shorter. So its sort of contraction is called a concentric contraction because it's getting shorter. And in the reverse, if the dumbbell is getting lowered, the biceps is still contracting, but it's extending while it's doing that, because in order to hold that biceps, you still need some force. So that sort of lengthening contraction is called an eccentric contraction. And the way I remember that one is you've got an E for eccentric and E for extend. So the muscle is sort of extending or lengthening throughout the movement. Then you've got an isometric contraction. So what happens with this one is the muscles still work, but they're not changing length. So a perfect example of this is when a tennis player grips the racket. So you need muscular force to hold onto that racket and not let it go, but the muscles aren't lengthening or shortening. They definitely shorten just to form that grip initially, but just to hold onto the racket is a isometric contraction. So you've got there, the person is got the dumbbell in their hand again, but there's no actual movement happening in that joint. So they're just holding it out without bringing it up or down. So that means that the bicep is in a state of an isometric contraction. The last type of contraction is a pretty tricky one to get your head around. It's isokinetic, and that means that there's a maximal tension all the way throughout the motion. So the muscle doesn't really, or your muscles don't really have many examples of this in everyday life. The only one I've ever heard of is breaststroke in swimming, where muscles push against the water. But in this case, you've got two people on a machine. This is a Cybex machine. Cybex is just a brand. There's plenty of other machines out there that do exactly the same thing. But what it does is apply the same force all the way through the motion. So I'll give you an example. When someone does a bicep curl, as they bring their hand up, the closer to the shoulder they get, the easier it is to bring the hand in, because there's no effect of gravity the closer it gets into the shoulder. So in this case, the people, when they're lowering or making their leg go up, the machine is applying a force that will make it the same as gravity all the way through if they want. I mean, they can increase or decrease the force, but it will always be the same that pushes against the muscle all the way through the joint, no matter how close or how far away it is from the ground. So the reason that they have these sorts of machines is to push a muscle to the point where it's got a maximum tension at all degrees within the range of motion, means the muscle will really be able to be developed, and it gets a lot stronger a lot more quickly, and it's perfect for athletes when they're training. The only problem is it's really impractical. These sort of machines you don't get at gyms. You'll get them at institutes of sport and also universities that run sporting programs. So they're not very accessible to the everyday athlete. They cost a lot of money also, and so often they're used as measuring equipment, not so much as training equipment. All right, so just in summary, muscles move as pairs to create a movement. They don't move alone. If one muscle contracts, there will always be another muscle somewhere else relaxing in reverse. And then that's called the agonist and the antagonist pairing. And that process is called reciprocal inhibition. And so that's one relaxing, one contracting. And then there's the three types of muscular contraction: isotonic, with the concentric and eccentric contractions; isometric, so just the muscle staying in a state of tension but not changing length; and then isokinetic, where the length changes but the tension stays the same. So I hope you got some notes from that. If you have any questions, please ask me in class.